Good morning, everybody. All right. I guess whatever. Why was the market up? I guess overnight there. Could be a lot of reasons. Maybe just because they didn't shut down the government, I guess. Anyway, certainly didn't hold on to the gain, as you can see, and it's down near the low. Actually down at Friday's low. And this I see as a pretty tough setup here as far as reliability. It's so close to this low right here. And you can see it went down, tagged that open gap on SPY. And now with this reversal, I'm thinking should touch the 200 MA. It could go lower, but we got this little void up above, that low right here. If today was to, just hang here and then have a few days, at least a second day of trying to make a turn, be much more reliable. So just generally, a 1-bar turn is going to be less reliable than a 2 or 3-bar turn. Common sense. In addition, being so close to a support point, as you can see, it's going to be a pivot in a smaller time frame, and so far away from any price resistance on the daily chart, makes it for a less reliable setup. And so that's what I mean when I titled it by being difficult. It's easy to press the button. It's difficult to determine, is it going to get whipsawed? And historically, a pattern like this is more likely to get whipsawed. Just putting the stop so far away just really doesn't make sense. So we'll have to see how this develops. And it is down several days in a row and down here. So extended, I suppose, indicators, depending on how your settings are, people will say that it's oversold, which, can become a lot more oversold if something nasty happens. There's a lot of economic reports coming out. I didn't look to see this morning. What happened this morning? Give me a second here. Some of them are coming out in the latter part of it. 10 o'clock, ISM manufacturing and construction spending and such. So, and then Powell is talking at 11 o'clock. So there you go. I mean, here's the potential for whipsaws. Significant news at 10 o'clock and Fed chair starting speaking at 11. So who knows what'll come out of his mouth. So be aware of that. And we'll see what shapes up here. Anyway, besides that, SPX I see is a total no-brainer on the put strike. By the way, last week's put strikes, nothing ever got touched. So SPY is here. Could it travel up there? Sure could. News comes out that it's positive news, to get back up to that high in a situation like this. But is it going to come down here? I mean, the only way I could imagine, right? You got to imagine certain things. The only way I could imagine prices getting down there today is Powell come out and said, hey, we're raising another quarter point, and he's not going to do that. So I just see, things went down this morning, and it's a good thing that there's this overreaction and the premiums just soar. And you've got this pivot. That's not a pivot yet, but it's got to get through here. It's got, this, it would fill this unfilled gap, which shouldn't be all that significant at this point. You got the 200 MA. And then to get all the way down, you got to get through 4,200. It's just not going down there today. All right. Other markets, the industrials got a larger bar, something that I covered in the advisory letter, looking at slight patterns of relative strength and weakness, but the patterns that we had. Whereas if we'll look at the NASDAQ 100, you'll see that it really didn't penetrate deep into the bar. So it's one way of bar by bar looking at relative strength and weakness, where the Dow penetrated deeply into the prior bar's range, and the probability of getting above this high, especially, I'm not sure where this is open, we'll look at the futures, but it must be down here as well, give or take, I would imagine. So it's not, highly unlikely it's going to get above here. And depending on how things start to move, I think eventually, it should work its way down to this major support level. Transports are already down a whole bunch. Right? Last week we talked about it's going to tag the 200 MA. It did. It bounced up a little bit, and this has been going down for a while. It led the way down. It can go lower, if things, obviously everything can go lower. But as we look at different trends, different markets or stocks, and look at something that's been going down for a while, this is already down, I think, 12 or 13%. It's likely that it will go down less than things that are not down as much as this. All right, let's cues. And you can see what I'm talking about, relative strength not penetrating that deep. This came into the beginnings of this gap fill on Friday. Didn't fill it clearly. Where is it? Right at Friday's low. And obviously it can come down here. And I think eventually it will get down here, give or take. And we'll see how all these different news items come out throughout the week, because there's something that can move the market every day this week. I'll be aware of that. Interest rates are up. The markets are down. It looked like maybe they were going to pull back a little further. They're moving higher this morning. And as we've seen, interest rates going up, dollar going up, and with oil going up, you don't have a good scenario for the markets being able to go higher. Just looking at the monthly chart. That next, let me pull this down here for now, just to clear that. And it looks like eventually it'll come up to this very significant area of resistance. This is something we'll be covering in MT Live in more detail. So make sure you get signed up for that. But it certainly looks like it's going to eventually get to its destination. And with that in mind, if this does continue to go higher, just common sense, what's been going on as this goes up, the market's gone down, suggests the market's going to go down. The 30-year, it's coming up there. Actually, we're already up to that resistance area, but maybe it goes a little higher. So look at the 13-week. It's been flatlining. Yeah, it's up a little this morning, but overall, it's really, you can see, just hasn't been doing anything. So everybody's, will they raise any more or not? Lots of opinions, but we'll see what happens. But you can see the futures there just rolling over a little bit. When you got a low so close by as it is here, it's just a bad setup, because your stops here, maybe it's going to bounce from there unless something is going on where it just cuts through it. So we can't assume that it will. And Jake saying 43.30. You want to do that, Jake, today? Going back to look. I guess it's far enough away. I don't know. With the Fed chair speaking and news, and this being relatively close, you would think it's down like that, it won't go back up there. But when things are extended as they are here, it's possible. So we look at what's the probability of one or the other. It may not get to either one, but is it going to get down here today? I think that's much more unlikely than going up there. So if you're going to pick one or the other, I'll pick this one. So I guess with things going down, there's even 4150 now could be done as I'm looking at the quotes. All right, let's continue. So futures is flip-flopping here. If this was to close like this, what I was referring to before, to get a reversal like this where it's several bars, that's going to be a much better setup than one in which it's going to, like with SPY, just breaking down below that low, which is okay, that triggers the sell with a stop above here, and the stop so close with a bottoming tail bar here. It's just not a great setup, reward to risk scenario. Put this back on weekly. And clearly, just looking to the left, eventually getting down here near this 4,200 area would make sense for a low to form. Let's just drag this, and it's an area. We don't know exactly where it's gonna stop, but somewhere in here where there's this large area of congestion would make sense. It does make sense. The Russell weakness, and just looking at the ETF, it just makes sense. It's going to come back down to the bottom of the trading range, give or take. So unless we see something of significance, of a turnaround, and something like this being a more significant turnaround would be one in which it gaps down, an ugly morning that gets reversed, and then we get a big wide range green candle. This isn't a big ugly gap down. This is just noise right now. Bitcoin, amazing. What's going on? There must be some news out there, which I haven't checked yet, but this mess that's been going on for a while, and you can see this little downside shakeout. Well, you should have pressed the button or sent somebody to buy it, Dan, and saying you told me. I don't know why. I mean, this flip-flop, I can see the little shakeout here, but which ETF? I don't remember. Anyway, it's just such a mess. Maybe it gets a bit higher as it'll run into this resistance here. But it did poke down and come back up again. Anyway, there must be some news out there that's driving this thing like that this morning. Crude oil, that's up here a little bit this morning. Last week we talked about the slowing momentum, how this had strong momentum, and now the distance between the highs here, and it's at resistance. So crude oil momentum slowing. All right. It's silver. Wow. Remember Friday? I never went back and looked at this, but on Friday, pre-market, this was up here. And I said, look at silver, how far up it is. Gold was going nowhere. And by the end of the day, it gave it all back. And it's always, you see something like that and the day isn't over. Don't assume it's going to close that way. There was a fear the U.S. government regulated them out of coin. I'm not sure what if you're talking about coin, Patrick, or this move, because gold, that didn't move, and that's heading down. And so maybe, this is communicating a greater fear of the Fed increasing interest rates again. I don't know if anything else going on. But, this is, well, you can see the move down, momentum move down and breaking that support. So when something makes a pivot and then it retests, clearly some people are accumulating, after this strong move up, assuming it's going to go higher, and it failed and stops get hit. And this is what we call a void, momentum move. time correction and breaks through the stops, and now there's nothing to stop it. All right. Dollar turning up there. And let's see here. I always look at to see where the euro is in relation to the dollar, and whether the dollar, well, the dollar is at some resistance, but it's not all the way at the top of it. But the euro's been going down for quite a while and into that pivot. So I think this week has the potential, depending on the news, to make it could make a sizable move. I don't think it's going to happen today, but it could make a sizable move. But with all these different news things, I'm just concerned of a whipsaw unless we see how today shapes up, whether we get that third day hanging up there and chopping around over here to build a larger area of overhead resistance. And that's what the idea is, of having a 2 or 3 day reversal when prices are extended away from any resistance area, having multiple days with an inability to go higher after a bottoming tail bar and building a resistance area, which will be more obvious as a larger resistance area intraday with 2 or 3 bars here. Well, then it starts to make sense because we have more information to support. It's going to be very difficult to get over that area, whereas to get over 1 day, Fed guy speaking, and you get what I'm talking about. It's just a low odds setup here today as far as looking for a swing short. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, Greg and I do our separate videos. I kind of do just a very minor market analysis for the weekly options trade video. And so I do mine ahead of his usually. And we always, it's not out of the ordinary, but we set the identical things this weekend without even speaking to each other. So I see on the news, just CNBC put up a little blurb here, and it's markets are down as the government avoided a shutdown. It's like, what? And it just reminds me that's how news people are. They don't know what to type when price action is not supporting the news. So we've all seen this friggin' horror story for how many years that the government is just whacked. It's divided. They can't get anything done. And so we've been there before. And so we don't think much of it. But if the markets were up today, then that would have made sense. Oh, markets are up because we have one less thing to worry about. They didn't know what to say, so their minimum wage typists just typed, and they just said, oh, markets are down as we do that. So anyway, back here to Friday's low. I said ideally we would chop around for 1, 2, 3 days and then move up or down with more confidence. Patrick, yeah, we'll look at all those Bitcoin stocks with a Bitcoin up like that. Bitcoin was a nice 1, 2, 3. And I looked at every single Bitcoin ETF, and this was the best one. So actually, let's put that on it. But like Block looks nothing like Bitcoin, nothing. So that was not a consideration. And we really didn't want to give a $28,000 instrument to our ETF traders. All right, Raul here, YouTube, ENVX, short below Friday's low. Sure, sell setup, resistance, 1, 2, 3 weekly. Yeah, I like it. I can't, that's gapping down a little bit, 12.44, 11 cents. So good. It's not too much. Yeah, it looks fantastic. Let me set an alarm here, 12:38, just so let the computer flag it for me. That's about Pan W. Sure. Sure. Yeah, if the market's going to sell off, that's a good pattern. I mean, it's a buy setup on the weekly, but yeah, I'll put it on the list. And you know, the rule, whenever we have a directional bias on something, it's also a credit spread watch candidate. Got to go through a checklist, of course. Thomas Roku, put spread. You know, it's a candidate, yes, but particularly when we're really iffy on the broader markets, we gotta make sure we have a bias there. But it's a candidate. I'll put it down. Clorox. We bought a half lot into the close. Now that is a classic climactic buy setup. Down a lot, accelerates from the 20. You got some type of potent reversal. You got pickup in volume. You got this igniting action on Friday. So we bought a half lot. I got an upgrade today, so we're getting a little gap up. I also had that in the weekend letter as a new put spread. But it's good to go if we get filled. Yeah, Tesla. What happened to Tesla here pre-market? I saw some little news story that they made some minor changes to the cars in China, but that like changed the steering wheel or something. I don't know, but that does not explain this recent action. And where are these other car companies? A couple of these reported their monthly sales. This is an ADR, which is why it's all gappy. But you know, gapped up, pulling back. I'd say 30-minute high. This is a day trade idea. Neo, much sloppier. Notice how you had less void on the daily, powered, you know, downtrend daily, weekly. And notice how the retracement on Neo versus Lima, India is much greater. You all see that? So that's another example of relative of weakness. I got no interest in that one. XPEV, possible put spread under 16. It's at resistance there, so not a great directional. But 30-minute high put spread at 16 if there's any juice. NSC got a downgrade. That's downtrend daily, weekly, monthly. That's part of the transports. TOS got a downgrade. That's a continuation pattern. Downtrend, bear 1, 2, 3, topping tail Friday. But now it's gapping down a lot actually. Sam gave me this one to look at. Little 1, 2, 3. Cuervo. I have an alarm at 96.50. So coin is up 78.80, but there's no good patterns. But yeah, we'll come back, Patrick, and look at all those Bitcoin related stocks. Stavros asking about Riven short. No, it's not a good pattern. The fact that it's 100% retracement is strength, Stavros. Yeah, it is down a little bit here, but there's no good void. And notice the 180 on the weekly. So that I don't like at all. I like this ENVX and Pan W better. Raoul found for us. FedEx got an upgrade. So nothing to do now, but it's worthy. It's worthy. if it can chop around for a couple days here in the upper half of Friday's range and then break out, it's bullish weekly, monthly. It's a transport, so it's significantly outdoing the sector. Spear here was a gap breakout, pulling in a little bit. So that is a fantastic gap trade right there. It's relative strength, it's in a trading range, flat 20 and 50, gapping just over this trading range. So 30-minute high or any other setup that I'll watch in the first half hour. That's a nice gap setup right there. So I have it in the middle chart right here. It'll be a directional. Also, I looked at the puts, the 35s, they're pretty darn juicy. So put spread also. And Pavel saying, giving me the news on Tesla, their Q3 production delivery report. Okay. Yeah, things like that, Pavel and everyone else, I don't know if they're known dates. Like I know Costco was unusual and they routinely report their monthly same store sales. But you gotta view those things as a minor earnings event. It's pending news. So I do not check pending news other than earnings on things. But as you can see, it's real. You got to be aware of that. I mean, another example is like Apple having their investor conference day, things of that sort. So I'll always be on alert. Fleur, I had an alarm at 37. Look at this uptrend daily, weekly. If it can close above these tails, then I was tempted to put that in the weekend ladder, and I just set an alarm instead. So I'm gonna just set a new alarm. I'm gonna put it in a window because I really can't tell if it's opening up there or not. It's one print. Todd, I've been watching this thing for over a month. I think since this wide range bar, I've been watching it. And my alarm went off on this little pop last week. I was hoping it would come back and give us a retest of some sort. It's gapping up here. Nothing to do now. But I will get a trade on you one of these days. Just don't know when. Don't know when. But said, gee, it's been beaten down animal. And there is no sign of a turn on that yet. That's part of tan. I think it got a downgrade. Look at tan. The sector just looks horrible. Kudos to the Biden energy policy there. So Boeing is getting closer to a climo. I mean, it's not accelerating lower, but it's getting closer, I think. It's the farthest it is. You had the wide range bar on Thursday. Stabilization. Tesla we know about. MGM is a climo. Needs to get above Fridays. And I got a couple of alarms here going off on DXCM Rawlings. So DXCM 5-minute low. Same with Rawlings are good to go. Let's hold off the floor. Well, I didn't give a new ad on Clorox, so all right, so those are my alarms. Went off at the open. I mean, it's a sell setup. It's down a lot though. So, Greg used the term shakeout. not shakeout, whipsaw. And you just don't have a big enough void for me, Patrick. So I mean, this closing breakdown through all this bearish consolidation, that is a good continuation pattern. You see the difference between here and here? You know, I just gave you all the reasons.
Red bar doesn't mean sell.
All right, what else I got here? All right, Greg mentioned iBuy, possible signs of bottoming. There's my, all right, see, Fleur is not gapping up to 37 anymore. So I got my alarm on the other computer. I'll just leave it. Bowling, let me sit on a, oh, what's that? That scared the piss out of me. Welcome to, now you all see why they call our hockey team, is it, Greg? The Florida Lightning, or is it Tampa Lightning? That lightning came out of nowhere and scared me a little bit. All right, Boeing, how about 192.40? Hack, I'm gonna watch. I hope it